All right, welcome back to the Authenticity Calling podcast. I am your host, Relitza Spasova. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today we have a very special guest. His name is Brian Thomas, and I will let him introduce himself, but he is going to bring the magic of finance. And I see the background says grow and get rich. So let's get rich today. Brian, welcome to the podcast. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you share your magic with the world?
Sure, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate you giving me the time and the platform to share my message with everyone about grow and get rich, because basically that's my philosophy. And I'm a financial literacy speaker, and I speak to high schools and college students about the importance of financial literacy. And my main message for people is based on my story, which is sort of I would say, a regular to rags to riches story. So you've heard of rags to riches, right? Most
Absolutely.
people have.
Yeah.
But what's in the middle? Regular. And that's where a lot of people strive to be. They strive to go from rags to regular and then from regular to riches. But I'm really passionate about letting students know that wherever they are, wherever they start, they have basically a birthright to be rich, to have
Mm,
abundance in their life. And it really
mm.
all comes down to them deciding whether or not they want it and how to get there. And so that's kind of the basis of my platform.
Amazing. That is so juicy because it goes straight into abundance. It goes straight into that mentality that we have a birthright to have it all. And that is absolutely the truth of why we came here and how we are uniquely created and gifted with certain things that we get to share with the world. And I just love that you're bringing financial literacy to the people who need it most, the people who are our next generation. Yeah, I'm so lit up by what you do, and thank you so much for being with us today. And anything that comes through for us, any kind of conversations, I know you have a few topics in mind that you wanted to share with the audience. And so I would love for you to just, if you want to take it away, and if you're open to questions, whatever comes through, I'll ask
Sure.
and maybe serve the audience in some way. I'm a parent of my son's almost 9 years old, and I always think about financial literacy and how important it is. And that I did not grow up with financial literacy. I went to medical school. We didn't learn about the business aspects of life. And so I think it's just so important. And that's a piece that was missing. I was also called to health education, and I thought, what a beautiful way. And maybe this is something that we collaborate on in the future, but really creating that space for people to find and honor their calling and their gift in the world, but then have the financial literacy of how do I move that into and create money from it. So yeah, it's a really beautiful collaborative co-creative space that I'm kind of visioning for the future. But yeah, I would love to know more about what you'd like to share with our audience.
Sure. I mean, my message mainly to students is centered around the fact that, um, you know, your parents are your first kind of influencers when it comes to money, right?
Mhm.
Um, and when I was growing up, I came from what I would call a regular middle class household. And, my mom was an elementary school teacher, my dad was in the military, and we moved around quite a bit. Like
Mhm.
every 2 years, we moved to another state, to another military base. And so I got to experience different, lifestyles, in some cases we'd be in not so affluent neighborhoods, and other times we'd live on the base, and other times we'd live in the hood. So I
Mhm.
got to see people from all different lifestyles. And my mindset at that time was that, if you were born to a rich family, you were destined to be rich. If you were born to
Yeah.
a poor family, you were destined to be poor. And if you were kind of a middle class like I was, you were kind of lucky and you were destined to be middle class. And,
Yeah.
when I was young, I thought, maybe like your son's age, I just assumed that, you were lucky if you were born into a wealthy family and you were unlucky if you were not. And it just didn't really resonate with me from a
Mhm.
mindset perspective, that it really was all about me and my growth that
Yeah.
determines your parents don't predetermine your financial future. That's the basic message.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
yeah.
up to you. You are responsible for your personal finance. That's why it's called personal finance.
Absolutely. And personal responsibility is one of those things that's so powerful and so important because I feel like, in the space that I'm in right now in healthcare transformation, there's a lot of like blaming the system. And I think, sure, we can blame our parents for where they came from. We can blame, our education system that it didn't give us financial literacy. But at the end of the day, taking that personal responsibility to learn, and there's so much out on the internet that it can get overwhelming, I think, for people, right? And so it's really
Sure.
interesting that part of the question that comes up for me is, at what point did you realize, or what was that aha moment that you said, you know what, it's up to me? Like, was that at a certain age? Did something happen? What woke you up to the truth of, wait a second, I don't have to do it my parents' way? And you were uniquely gifted in that you got to see different ways growing up. You got to see, like you said, the riches, you got to see the hood, you got to see what like regular looks like. What was that moment where you were woken up to the truth of, this is my birthright and I can create what I want for myself?
Yeah, well, it was a long journey before I had that awakening for
Yeah.
sure. And I had just some setbacks in my life because my regular lifestyle with my parents sort of was upended when I was in the 10th grade. My parents got divorced,
Yeah.
and my father moved across the country, and my mom kind of spiraled into a depression, and she could no longer work as a
Mm,
teacher. And
mm,
so we found ourselves basically on welfare. So within a
mm,
year, a little over a year and a half, I had gone from regular to rags. And
mm,
so that whole experience kind of upset my high school education
mhm,
and plans because,
mhm,
I planned to go to college and get a degree like my mom did, right?
mhm,
And so, but all I could think about in, my sophomore year of high school was survival. How could I
mhm,
help my mom and my brothers? And so, I didn't prepare for college. I didn't apply for any scholarships. That was the last thing on my mind. And by the time I was a senior, um, I just failed to prepare. And so the only option for me was community college. So I kind of went through a phase where I was basically in shock from going from regular to rags. And
mhm,
so, it took a while before I had that awakening that it was on me. At that stage, I was doing exactly what you described. I was blaming everybody for my situation and my mom's situation, and I was angry at my father, and so there were all these excuses that I had for why I didn't get to college and get started. And I went through community college. I met my wife, who's my soulmate. We've
oh,
been together ever since.
wow.
And but even after we got married, we had a child early and we struggled. And I think the pivotal moment was about, 6 years into our marriage. We were just struggling month to month. Our finances were way more than our, minimum wage jobs could afford. And I remember just one day I was sitting at the kitchen table and we just had a mountain of bills, and I knew it was way more than what we had in our bank account.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I knew that something had to change for me. I had to like reevaluate where I was going in life. And, I had finished a 2-year degree, but I'd gone to work and dropped. I didn't finish school. So I went to work and started trying to earn more money. But I realized that I needed to grow more. I needed to invest in myself. So that day I just kind of decided. I met with my wife and talked about, credit card debt and all these just student loans I had for the first 2 years of college. And I said, we got to get out from under the debt. And you
Mm,
know once we do that, we're tearing up these credit cards. We're not looking back, we're looking forward, and we're never going to get in debt again. And I don't think we ever got in credit card debt the rest of our marriage. So but that was
beautiful.
a pivotal moment for me when I just realized, I can't be a failure as a father, a husband.
Mhm,
It
mhm,
just, I just knew at that point I was headed towards, I was struggling, but I just knew I couldn't be a failure for my
mm,
daughter and for my wife. And
mm,
so that led me on my transformation of growth.
yeah.
And the prosperity part just came. The more I grew, the more I prospered. You know, I got better opportunities, better jobs. So that was one pivotal moment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one. I think that's a really, really big one. Cause I think there's a lot of people out there who, maybe they're not in the depths of whatever the depths look like. I think it's very different for different people. It could be emotional, it could be, financial, it could be in their career, it could be relationship, whatever it is that throws us. I find that most people do find that valley where they suddenly recognize that it's not them they see in the mirror, and
Right.
something's got to change. So I first of all, I want to say thank you for being a man of honor who takes personal responsibility to show up, because to me, that's been one of my biggest sort of sticky points, things that I work on is, men don't show up, basically, is what this the story. And
Right.
so I've been calling forward and asking for evidence of men that show up. And so thank you for
Sure.
being one of those men that take personal responsibility, that
Thank
really
you. I
do
appreciate it.
lead.
And it's
Yeah,
important to have, mentors and role models. And for
absolutely.
me, my parents were my first mentors and role models, and I sort of lost both of them early in life.
Wow.
Shortly after I got my associate's degree and my daughter um, was about to be born, my mom actually suffered a stroke and she passed away. So that was another
Wow.
setback for me. And I
Yeah.
lost kind of the two most important mentors in my life. My dad wasn't around and my mom passed away. So,
Wow.
as you can imagine, as a young father, a young husband, I was struggling. And
Mhm.
so not having that role model around, it's important for every young man, regardless. It's important for young women as well. So when I talk to kids, I realize that some of them have role models and some of them don't. Some of them have the wrong role models. So that
Exactly.
kind of leads into the topic of parenting when it comes to finances, because, you know, as I mentioned before, you're not predestined to follow your parents' financial outcomes,
That's
right?
right.
So that's the first thing you need to recognize. You need to have the mindset that if I grow, my money will grow. If you don't
Absolutely.
grow, your money won't grow. And
Yeah.
money is so important in our life. And as much as we don't want to like focus on it, every day we make decisions that involve money, where we're going to,
Absolutely.
how we're going to get to a certain place, transportation, everything involves money. And money is just a representation of value.
Mhm.
If you provide value, then money will come to you. If
Mm.
you become stagnant and you don't grow and you cease growing, then money will somehow stop coming towards you.
Mm.
That's just how the universe works. It's a value is the
That's right.
baseline of money.
That's
So when
right.
you have to realize that everything that you have right now, everything that you don't have that you desire, it's all a reflection of who you are right now, and whether or not you're going to grow and move forward, or whether you're going to retract and fall back. And so that personal accountability is an important thing, but most young people don't see it right away.
Yeah.
It takes a while for them to recognize the strength that they have in themselves if they just choose to be accountable.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much there that we can unpack. So I feel like I think there's the overall like relationship and respect with money, which I think is so important, because so many of us, I think, in situations where it's not necessarily abundant, I think most people, and especially in the climate that we're in right now, in the economic climate, there's a lot of people who don't have a very abundant relationship with money. It's one of those relationships where it is either limited or scarce, or there's tightness in spending. And so I wear my infinity necklace to remind me all the time. It's
Yeah,
coming
it's
and it's
great.
going. Like if you're tight on spending, then it'll be tight on coming back. And so it's part of that sort of like, ebb and flow of life, that we do need to invest in ourselves, whether it's the
Absolutely.
education. If you're feeling stuck, therapy obviously is so important to get unstuck. If you're doing well but want to get better, there's coaching, there's mentors. All these things are so important. But it really does. Our relationship with money is so powerful. And a conversation I had just before our call actually was very much around, there's this beautiful human being who has embraced their gift, they're sharing it with the world, and they're still not attracting the level of income. And so and I'm sure you meet people like this all the time, and maybe not the teenagers yet, because they haven't honored their gifts and really created and gotten into the entrepreneurial world. Although I think teenagers nowadays, even my son goes to school with beef jerky at Kit Kat and like something else, and comes back with $20. And I'm like, what happened? Where's it? How did you get this money? And he's like, oh, I just sold my food that I
Yeah,
didn't want. And so I just thought, what an entrepreneurial type of mentality. And he's already there.
right.
But it's so interesting, because we can create, we can share our gifts, we can be called to a space and still not have the exchange. So if you were to see, whether it's a child or youth or adult, and we'll get into the parenting because I think that's really important too. But what would you say to them? What could they shift? They're giving value, they're sharing their gift, but there's this tension. There's this tension in the relationship with money where it's not coming. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, I do. And I think that oftentimes people want to find the excuses for why they don't have money coming their way. And they
Mm,
focus on the excuses instead of focusing on what they could do to change the circumstance, right? And
got it.
so I think in the example you're using, somebody is giving their all, right? They're passionate about what they're doing, they're adding value, but they're just not seeing the rewards of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes when that happens, they question, again, they question their ability
Yeah.
to attract money. And a
Yeah.
lot of times it's not so much what you're doing that's wrong. It's just that it's not the right time for you yet. So you have to be
Okay.
patient and
Uh-huh.
persevere, because
That's it.
everything comes to you and it's in the right time.
Yes.
And
Yeah. And if it is
oftentimes,
your gift, yeah, you just keep giving.
right. And so that's one of the things that I teach parents is to delay gratification. Because if we
Mm.
get in the habit of getting everything quickly, right
Yes.
now, right away, we want
Yeah.
results, whether we're an entrepreneur, whether we're a child with the parent wanting something in the store. If we get accustomed to getting everything we want right away, that's
Mm-hmm.
not a very good foundation for your future,
That's
because
right.
the reality is that you need to be patient and to work and earn the things that are going to come towards you. And you just need to recognize that things will come to me in time, in their own time. The
Yes.
universe will bring that to me when it's my time to receive it.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, whether you're an entrepreneur or any kind of business, it takes time to ramp up a business. It takes time to grow. It takes
Yeah.
time for people to know who you are and to even see you, right?
Yeah.
So you can't expect your product or your service to just all of a sudden go gangbusters when people don't even know who you are. So
That's right. Yeah. I just want to highlight something. Sorry to
thank you.
interrupt. I want to highlight something that you said, because I think there's a big misconception around working hard. And I just want to highlight that you did not ever say work hard. You said
Right?
persevere. You said work. You said earn and be patient. And that brings us to that universal truth that the breakthrough is in the resistance. It's in that place where you just keep doing it. And that's where faith, I think, comes in, that faith and trusting
Absolutely.
relationship, knowing that it's just on the other end. You just keep going, you just keep giving. And that is the abundance, right? The trusting is when you're at that point, and so many people, so many entrepreneurs, so many coaches, so many, I think just so many business people, they know that, there's no such thing as failure. You try and you learn and you try again. You just keep trying and you keep going and you keep doing until you succeed. And that's that perseverance that you're right. I think in our generation, it's a little scary that kids want everything right away. And people, I don't even think it's just kids. I think even adults, we're at this place where everything is replaceable. There's always the next best thing around the corner. And so everyone's just waiting for that next best thing, right? There's no fixing, there's no patience. I saw my mom throw out some bamboo earlier and I thought, it's still green. What are you doing throwing it out? She's like, oh, there's another one right there. And to me, it just didn't make sense. And she comes from the world of communism where nothing got thrown out. So even for her to have that shift and that transformation through her lifetime is really interesting to see. But I feel like people get stuck in either the hoarding mentality or that like get rich quick mentality. And so it's somewhere in between both where we get to focus, clear the clutter, right? Get rid of the things that are not working, focus on the thing that does work. And that's such a universal gift that when we persist, when we keep going, and it's not about working hard, it's not supposed to feel like hard work. When you're doing your aligned work, it gives you energy. It brings you the passion. That is also an energetic exchange. So I heard you say that money is value. So to me, that's how I see it, is it's an energetic exchange. I'm giving my energy to something. And for me, I make my pricing very intuitively. It just comes through and I trust it. And I know that the right people will end up in the space who are called to do it for that price. And because it's so intuitive and it's spiritual, I know I can trust it. Now, some people I don't think are there. So many people have money stories around what's everyone else offering, comparison, and all these things. So I think that's another sticky point, because I used to do the same. And I noticed that when I offered my programs for less, thinking, oh, I'm a new coach, I should have a beta program, I should offer it for less, I should do this. You get all these people that are really not invested in what you're offering. And so it's not an energetic match. So I think that's another thing. Like a lot of people are stuck offering something that's not right for them. It's not spiritually aligned. It's not something that actually meets the needs of the people they are meant to be working with. So I think that's another piece. Like
that's the key message there, right? Is it needs to meet the needs of the customer or who it's intended for. And our ego is so strong that oftentimes we struggle with that, you know, whether or not we're getting what we perceive the value to be in terms of the price, when in reality, we need to focus on, is the customer receiving the value that we intend to give them, what they really want, not what we intend to give necessarily, but what they want.
That's right.
And you said something that made me think of you know, something that's really important, and that's failure is the price of tuition, you know, or the tuition for success. Failure is the tuition for success, right?
I love that.
So you have to fail in order to grow. And growth is really the key to being financially independent, because all the things that you're talking about, all the struggles that people see with their business, with pricing, with copying other people, it really comes down to, in a lot of cases, it comes down to you not really recognizing whether or not you're adding value. And so once you realize that, if I'm stuck, I need to reassess the value that I'm providing. If you're in a job and you're just not getting promoted, you're not getting raises, you may have kind of maxed out your skills at that job, right? Because someone in that job is getting paid more than you and someone's getting paid less.
That's right.
And there's a reason for that. You know, they're adding more value or less value. So oftentimes people get in a comfort zone, they get stuck in a job they really don't love, they're not passionate about, but they're afraid, that fear, uncertainty, and doubt of moving to another job, another company. They're fearful of leaving the comfort zone. We've all been there.
That's right.
But in order to grow, sometimes you have to look for another environment, another opportunity. And if you're a kid, your environment really has a lot of impact on your mindset, whether it's money or whether it's, you know, your life in general. And oftentimes, if you don't have the opportunity to be in a different environment. That's why we send kids off to summer camp. That's why we try to take them on vacations so that they can see other environments. So that's really important. So sometimes when people are stuck, they
Yeah.
need to get in a new environment. They need to see life through another lens. You know, if you're serving your customers and you're serving a certain type of customer, maybe you need to look beyond that customer base, to find what other customers need and whether you could fulfill that. But you really need to find what you're passionate about. And
That's right.
whether it's in a corporate job or, an entrepreneurial business sense, if you really don't love what you're doing every day, you're going to struggle to grow
That's
because
right.
you're going to do just enough to get by. You're just going to try to make it through the day. And if you do that over and over and over and over enough, then your finances is going to reflect that. You're just going to earn just enough,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And that's where burnout happens. Like that's exactly what you said about passion. That's why the P3 alchemy method, that's my mastery method. It starts with your passion because your passion sparks the flame. Your passion is what actually gives you the energy. It's not
Oh,
the
absolutely.
finances that are going to move you forward. It's that energy from your passion that lifts you up like an air balloon. And then
Oh,
all of a sudden
absolutely.
everyone can see your
I
gift.
mean, I've had jobs where you know, I worked on the weekends because I loved doing the work. I mean, I was in, salary jobs where I didn't get paid for extra time on the weekend, but
Yeah,
I loved the work so much I'd wake up on Saturday mornings and dig into it
that's
if I
right.
didn't have anything else going on because I loved the work. So when you find something you're passionate about, you're going to continue to be curious, you can
Yeah.
continue to grow,
Yes.
and you're going to, as a result, add more value. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you add more value, people recognize that. People are attracted to you. They want to be around you. So that
Absolutely.
leads me to the third thing that's important for students and parents. And that's really to have a map, a plan, and to take advantage of those mentors and learn from their successes and failures. But then you need to kind of bake it into where you want to go. So you
Yes.
really do need to think about where do I want to go? And the focus in schools is so much on career.
Yes.
There's really no personal um, finance focus in schools because
Mhm.
and that's just historic. We're taught to to prepare to get a job, and
Mhm.
that's okay.
Mhm.
Um, there's very little preparation to be an entrepreneur, maybe until you get to college and you start having a little more awareness, but it's fine to understand that you want to get a good job, um, and that's kind of moving you towards being regular.
Mhm.
But if you really want to have abundance, you need to add more value than just what you're going to do in your job, in your personal life. And you need to think about, what do I really want? Is this job fulfilling my passion? Is this career fulfilling my passion? And so many of us have found ourselves in careers that we like to do, but we didn't really love to do.
Yes.
And so many people will go through college, they'll get a degree in something, and then they'll just absolutely hate it when they get that first job. And that's a shame because they haven't really prepared for that, finding that purpose, right? Or finding the thing that you love. Your parents oftentimes push you to become a doctor or push you to become a lawyer or push you into the same profession that they're in. And that can be dangerous because if they don't have that passion for it, they
Yeah.
could waste a lot of time, they could get into debt
Yeah.
financing that education, and then when it's all said and done, they're not happy. So it's really important for parents to be transparent about their own finances,
Mhm.
their own careers, whether or not they love what they do.
Mhm.
Let children understand that they need to find that passionate
That's right.
career choice, right?
That's right.
And not so much choose it based on money, because
Exactly.
your career is not going to dictate your financial success. If you
Yeah.
you could be in a career that pays, very well, but that doesn't mean you're going to get paid very well.
No,
You don't
exactly.
add value in what
Stability.
you're doing.
That's right. And
You're just not
stability.
going to
That's
do
the
a
other
good
thing.
job at that career.
That's right. 2020, if it taught us anything, it's that there's no stability anywhere. Like if you think that a certain career is going to bring you stability,
Yeah.
unless you have the grit to make it through, you know, certain stresses and tensions that can happen and likely will keep happening in our generations to come. Yeah, I think you said something really important that I just want to circle back to, is that curiosity, that learning from a curious place. And I think if I left my students with anything as a 12th grade advisor, it was to guide them to study something that they were curious about, because
Sure.
that is where the passion lies, you know, and that is where you find your spirit tribe. And that's where you start to cultivate that confidence in yourself and in your gifts and in your passion. And because I think passion is one of those things, people think that you either have it or you don't. But I believe that everybody has a passion for something if they are open enough to explore. And like you say, if it's not in your immediate environment, go outside of your environment.
Sure.
So something that came through for me, even parents who maybe don't have the financial capacity to, you know, get their kids to a certain level or get them, support them too. I mean, there's different places in the financial world. Like you said, there's scholarships, there's lines of credit, there's loans, there's all these things. And to me, I think the most promising thing is starting with that vision. So really getting your child outside of your own community if you want to support them, and having a vision that's bigger and greater and more than what you can provide, that in and of itself, even if you can't, you know, take them on a trip around the world. I think it's so important just to get out of your own immediate vicinity, because the culture is the same there. And if you stay where you were born and raised, you will end up there, right? Because
Yeah.
how far
I
can you
mean,
shoot
it's
if that's all
natural
you
for
see?
you to think and act and do the things you're close with the closest circle, right? The people
That's
that are
right.
closest to you, you're going to want to kind of, I think the word I'm looking for is you're really looking to not necessarily collaborate, but you're looking to be accepted by your
That's
group, right?
right.
And so you tend to, especially in high school, you tend to act like, talk like, dress like the
That's
people
right.
around you because you just want to be accepted and fit in,
Yes. Yes.
right? And so, and oftentimes that's a struggle, especially in high school, because you're just not confident in some things and other things you're overconfident in. But you just need to kind of realize that there's a bigger environment, right, outside of your circle of friends.
That's right.
And oftentimes we kind of struggle. In my case, we moved around so much, I never really got to get locked in on a
That's
circle.
right.
My
Yeah.
circle of friends changed, and so as a
Yeah.
result, I'd change. I'd change the way I dress. I changed the way I talk. I wasn't being very authentic all the time, right? Because I just wanted to fit in.
But
And
it's
so
beautiful that you got that exposure, that different
exactly,
is possible. And that most people don't have. People grow up in that fishbowl when they're in an actual ocean and they think, oh, this is the only thing. So
right?
that's neural mirroring. Like
Yeah.
part of it is our psychology and wanting to be. It's a very conscious choice. But the other part is that from when we're born and the way we grow, our mind literally just mirrors what it sees. That's what the patterns, they're not our
Absolutely.
faults consciously. It just happens. And so that exposure that
That's
you
why
got.
parents are so important for the
Yes.
development. So you have a 9-year-old, one of the things that I did with my kids, my parents gave me allowance, right? Um, and I came from a big family. I had 4 older brothers, and eventually I had 4 younger brothers. So a group of 9 boys. I'm in the middle, right?
Yeah.
I was the baby brother for a long time, and then I was the big brother. So it was really two separate sets. We were never all in one household together. But the important thing is your parents kind of, set the foundation of your kind of mindset about money. So whenever we wanted allowance, there were too many of us to just give everybody what they wanted, right? So we
Yes.
always had to earn allowance,
Yeah.
right? So we had chores, we had to do the dishes, cut the lawn, vacuum the floor. My dad was in the military, so you can imagine we had a list on the refrigerator when we got home from school. It was like a chore chart.
Yeah.
It's the list of things to do.
Yeah.
And we weren't even getting allowance when we first got the list. We were just told to do it.
Yeah.
But, one day my dad, he said, I'm going to start giving you boys allowance. And so I'm going to leave some money, on the table in the morning when I leave. So we were anxiously wondering what it was going to be. And there were 5 of us at that time.
Yeah.
And I was the baby brother, right? And so he left in the morning, we got up, we went in the kitchen, and there was like a $5 bill, you know. And back in those days, you know, in the late 60s, that was a lot of money, but
Big
it
deal. Yeah.
wasn't enough. It wasn't for five of us. It was like $1 a piece. Maybe he didn't have change. Maybe that was a mistake, you know. So when he got home, we were like, Dad, there was only $5. That's not enough for all of us for allowance. Our friends are getting, you know, $5 a week. And he said, do you know how much gas you can buy with $5? And I'm like, I don't even drive. My older brother, what are you talking about? He said, there's 2 lawnmowers in the garage. If you guys buy $5 worth of gas and you start cutting lawns, you know how much money you could make? That's
Wow.
exactly what we did. We started a lawn service, and the 5 of us could cut a lawn in less than a half an hour. One of us edging, one of us, 2 of us with the lawnmower. And we'd cut people's lawns so quickly that the owner would come out and say, you can't be done. There's no
Yeah.
way you could be done. You couldn't have done a good job. And he'd go look around. And so we ended up kind of going slower over time because they didn't get the perceived value we were going to.
Right.
But the long story is that allowance teaches kids to earn in order to get what they want. And it also teaches that important lesson of delayed gratification. You know,
Yeah.
we could buy things with the money we earned, but it was going to take time. We had to cut more lawns and then save the money and then get. So our parents taught us the value of hard work and earning money, and they taught us the value of, you know, saving and delayed gratification. But what I didn't learn at home, that took me a long time, was how to invest a dollar and make it grow.
Yes.
My parents didn't have those skills, and because we moved around so much, we never owned a home. So we
Mhm.
never understood the importance of property and compound interest, you know, the impact of that, right? We thought if you put money in a savings account, you just saved until you had enough.
Right.
Savings
Yeah.
account won't grow your money.
No.
It
The
just
bank will grow it. They'll take their they'll take their
they'll
cut.
take advantage of it and they'll make it grow.
That's right.
So you need to teach your kids, I think, the importance of money by not just running out and buying them everything they want, anytime they want something.
Yeah.
You need to teach them delayed gratification. You need to have them be patient and give them allowance and let them earn and save up for the big things. Of course,
Yeah.
you're going to provide the things they need, but for the things that they really want, the toys and things like that, you know, delay that gratification. So
Yeah.
as parents, that's another key thing that we can do. And it
Yeah.
may seem old school, allowance, yeah, allowance. Kids are so spoiled now, they, you know, you say you're going to give them allowance, they're going to be like, but you buy everything I want now. Or
Exactly.
you give
Yeah.
me a debit card, or you know,
That's right.
but that can be dangerous
Yeah.
because then when they, you know, I want kids to prepare for their independence, not only their financial independence, but their mental and kind of psychological independence from their parents, their physical independence, being out of the home and in a dorm or in an apartment and learning to take care of themselves, you know, and then the financial independence is key. So preparing kids for independence starts when they're very young. You know, I would say,
Mhm.
you know, elementary school kids can start learning that lesson early. Middle school kids, there's things that you can do, but if we as parents have too much success, we can spoil our kids and not prepare them properly. They
That's
could, sure, you could pay for college, they could go off, but when they become independent, they're going to struggle
Mhm.
because they didn't really understand that money equals a value.
Well, and
They
they
were
didn't practice the skills.
dependent on their
Yeah.
parents for
Yeah.
so long.
They didn't
Yeah.
get to sorry to interrupt you, but they didn't get to practice the skills. And I think that's the other piece about earning an allowance. It is something that you actually have to do to learn. It's not just a concept that you can pass down, right? You can see your parents do it, but until you're actually doing it, until you see and you feel, that's that dopamine rush, that hit that you get. Oh, it feels so good when I get to, do something. I put my energy into something and there's an end result. It feels good. Forget even just the money, but just creating something with your own energy, being able to take pride in that thing. And I think the other piece is that business sense, the information and the knowledge and the wisdom sharing of investing and all of that. So I'm so, so grateful for everything you shared. And I feel like we could talk forever because there's so many different avenues that we could go down with this. And maybe there will be a sequel to this conversation, because I do want to go back and just, there's so many little threads to pull on, and just so much value that you provided today. Thank you. But I'm curious, do you teach financial literacy in terms of like investing, and how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more, if they want you to speak at their schools? I think it's just such a powerful, I still remember the person, I don't remember his name, but I remember there was a man who came and spoke to us about seizing the day. And it's funny, one of my notebooks now actually has it on there. Carpe diem, seize the day. And it's like, I will remember that talk for the rest of my life, because it was so powerful. And I think mentors in schools, whether it's middle schools, high schools, kids are getting brighter and like they're taking more action. I see my 8-year-old, almost 9, he has a very entrepreneurial. So if he had a mentor like you, I would love to hire. He doesn't need a math tutor. He needs somebody that will really take him from where he's at and help him to accelerate through all the things that I didn't learn. So yeah, I'm just curious, how can people find you? What do you offer? And yeah, how can they get more?
Sure. So I kind of offer two things. I offer some coaching, and I'm really passionate about expanding the base of people, particularly young people that I can reach. So I'm making this transition to focusing more on speaking than one-on-one coaching, because I think I can reach a broader audience. But I can be reached on Instagram at one Brian L. Thomas. And so that's where you can reach out to me, send me a DM, and talk to me. I'd love to come to your school, your child's school, and talk about the importance of financial literacy. But that leads me into my next project for 2024 is to develop an online reality fair so that kids can have a dose of what it really means to earn money and to have expenses and to experience that independent financial life while they're still in high school. And so it's not a new concept, but typically a reality fair is done in person, and it's a big event. And usually it's maybe once a year, every 2 years. Schools really struggle with pulling off the event because there's so much, resources and materials and time and effort to coordinate and plan it. And my goal is to bring it all online next year and to have schools be able to use it without incurring the cost of doing it in person.
Wow.
And so if I come to a school and I speak, as a bonus, they're going to get access to the online course at no additional cost.
Wow.
So my passion and my goal is to reach 100,000 students and to take them through this online reality fair.
Amazing.
Because that is what truly can make the difference. So, I still do some one-on-one coaching. That's important, particularly for people. It's been for more people after they get in trouble, but I want to reach people before they get into financial difficulty. So that's the difference.
Yes, I love that. Oh, prevention is everything. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's amazing. That's such a powerful place. And you're right. If there's no cost there's no organizational fees, it's a beautiful space where people you don't even have to take your child down the street to a different neighborhood. You just log in online, and all
Absolutely.
of that information, all of that potential, all of that learning is there. That is so amazing. Thank you, Brian, for sharing and for creating this. And it's really answering your calling to share that gift and that invitation to people to step into what's possible. And like you say, it's a birthright for everyone. So there's no reason that you should feel stuck. There are always options, opportunities, and you have to take it one step at a time. So please reach out to Brian if you feel called to work with him. If you have a school or if you have a community that you want to invite Brian to. thank you so much for doing what you do. I would love to have you speak at my son's school, even the middle schools and the high schools where I went to school, any of my students that I taught in the past. Like, I'm a yes for all of it. So anything you have going on, I would love to support. Thank you. Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much.
you for having me. I really appreciate the time, and I look forward to, collaborating with you in the future. And I appreciate your efforts to help me spread my message of financial literacy to students and parents. Thank you.
Thank you. It's so important. Yeah. And I feel like we could even do workshops with parents where, teaching them just how to even start to have those conversations. I've been doing it with my son just by what comes through and intuitively, he wanted to have a tie-dye business. Sure, let's do it. And I supported him, but I'm not a bad business person. So I feel like those spaces are just so inspiring and supportive and helpful. And in our world of digital distraction, it is something that is extremely powerful. So I have this kind of download of working with someone to create an app. I don't know if one already exists, but something that kids can actually find fun, learning about money,
Sure,
really interactive, just because it's
sure,
their own
absolutely,
language. They speak digital, engagement. And so that kind of comes
absolutely.
through for me. So maybe that's something that'll come to fruition in 24 for you. But I am so excited for you. And yeah, 2024 is going to be the year of growing and getting rich. So I love
Absolutely.
it. Thank you so much for sharing your gift. And I look forward to our co-creation. Yeah, I have a feeling there's something there in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate the
Have a
time.
beautiful day.
All right, you too.
Take care.